Hello, today Sarah and I are going to give you some insight into sourcing around the world. Now, it is a vast subject and there are many, many opportunities to source, which will depend on what your business is, what it sells, and the volume and size of that business. So depending on the category, whether it's homewares or textiles, there are key areas of the world that you can source in. And one of the areas of the world that is great at all of that is India. And we were having a debate earlier because lots of commentary about India has been that it is a nearer source. So when we talk far source and near source sourcing, India tends to be a hybrid of that. And India's sourcing is really, really growing. So definitely because of the geopolitical scene and the impact of COVID, India is becoming ever more popular a country to source from, both for textiles and homewares. It is nearer than China, but it will still take significant time for you to get your goods there. So being aware that shipping is by sea freight generally, and the lead time is about 4 weeks. But don't forget you have to include time to port, which might be another couple of weeks. So although it will be faster than shipping from China, you still need to factor in how long that is going to take. In terms of trading, India is becoming ever more popular because the duties are lower than those that you will pay in China. So where in China, you will pay often anti-dumping duties for China accessories, in India there are going to be preferable trade terms, and what this country is waiting for and a number of retailers are waiting for is a big trade deal with India, which is supposed to be coming post-Brexit. And I think following the elections this year there was a real hope that there will be some free trade with India into the UK, and this is likely to entice more retailers to source from India. But India is like China. It's a huge country and there are many, many different regions within India that you're going to source from. You're likely to do business in US dollars, which is the easiest way to do business because you'll get a much better rate than doing it in rupees. So we would always advise to use the currency of that country. And there are factory closures that will happen around many, many holidays. And there are so many different regions of India. When we work with them, we find that different regions are closed at different times. So just being mindful of the religious holidays that happen throughout India and being mindful of that when you're having conversations with them. And clearly big festivals, the big Muslim festivals such as Diwali and Eid, you will find that factories close down for that, much in the same way that the Chinese factories would close for Chinese New Year. So just being aware of the cultural needs of those countries. And the Indian suppliers are very, very keen to do business with Europe. They're very amenable, they're very open. The cost of doing business in India is cheaper because the work and labour rates are lower than China. This doesn't mean that Indian factories are not paying their people well, but the cost of living in India is much lower than that in China. So another incentive is that you can get enhanced margins in India, as well as the fact that they can produce goods that have beautiful embroidery and techniques and are more fast fashion than you would get from the core programs. Although they can do core programs as well, they're very good at doing more intricate, more fashion-forward product in both homewares and in fashion. So I'll pass over to Sarah now to talk to you about some of the regions that you can deal with in India.
So in terms of India, and when you're looking to source home and gift, areas to think about really would start off in terms of glass. So if you're wanting more decorative glass as opposed to functional, most glass in India is produced in an area called Firazabad, which is in Uttar Pradesh. As I say, this tends to be more on the decorative side. So even though they might be able to produce shapes that look like they could be wine glasses or goblets, be really careful that actually the finishes on them will be able to be washable or survive having water in them. It's unlikely you'll get dishwasher-proof glass, for instance, from that region. But if you're looking for beautiful colorations and patination, they can get some amazing techniques, which are also great to be used as candle vessels. Then there are some really big metal work hubs in India. So Delhi still has some factories which might surprise you within the city itself. But a few hours drive outside of Delhi is the main region in Moradabad. So anything from big candle lanterns are being produced there and the likes of barware. And that's a lot of different metalworking techniques. So they do a lot of hammered work and they can do sand casting. You'll also see powder coating there, so a real variety of techniques. And then jute from Bengal, so again across finishes like rugs and mats, and in general rugs is quite a big production line in India and does occur in several regions, but does come with a real warning in terms of quite often work on rugs is outsourced to home workers. So if you're looking to source rugs from India, it's really good to work with someone who understands that market. And there's nothing wrong with outsourcing to home workers, but you've therefore got to be much more diligent on your auditing and checks. Then stonework quite often comes from the east and south, but one that maybe might seem obvious in hindsight area for stonework is Agra, also known as the home to the Taj Mahal. So beautiful work they do there with inlaying stone on stone and various techniques. But interestingly, the stone often doesn't originate from that part of the world. So marbles may still be coming over from India and the like. So again, checking your sourcing is really important there. And then again, some really kind of unique and interesting areas. So if you travel right down to the bottom of southern India in areas like Kerala, you'll find dried flower producers, which will literally involve taking all the plant varieties and various things that get used there, and they'll be drying them over vast areas and vast fields because they're lucky enough to have the climate and the heat to be able to do that. So some really interesting areas. And then Jaipur, again, another important area, and one thing they do particularly well here is block printing, and that can be applicable to both home and fashion, and again is where things like paisley prints kind of historically originated, and you'll still see lots of evidence of those more historical kind of originated patterns. And then with more of a fashion angle, India is amazing for both jewellery and gemstones, mainly due to the sourcing capacity they have for gemstones. And this is another thing you'll see in Jaipur, but also in Delhi and Kolkata. There are still lots of jewellery producing areas there. Then West Bengal is where you start to see the needlework and the embroidery come through on silks and cottons. So this is where we've talked about that a lot of retailers and brands might not get their core programs for India, but will look to India for more of the embellishment, more of the fashion, more of the trend, because they're really skilled at adding those details onto lines. Gujarat also has key fashion textile centres in Surat and Ahmedabad. And then if you're looking for more things like jersey wear, nightwear and children's wear, Tirupur is where we'd kind of look for that. And children's wear and baby wear in particular is something they do particularly well in India and have good routes into fair trade cotton and good sourcing on cotton.